welcome. Thank you so much for being here in Austin. We love having you.
Thank you. I love being back here. It's so good to be back.
Well, I wanted to ask you, you are a comic book lover, genre film lover. Tell us about your feelings about this story.
This was definitely one of those comics that really made a big splash when it first came out, and it spoke to a lot of, I think, our fears and our worries and the undercurrents of the political divisions that have been have been exploited over many years, and this story has only become more and more poignant. And the idea of this country's divisions actually creating another civil war is not something that's that far-fetched. And what I love about this reincarnation of this comic is that we don't focus so much on the actual war part. We allude to what happened during the evacuation of Manhattan when the war first started and the country divided into the Free States and the United States of America. But, Roberto wanted to kind of skirt the dystopian, cynical perspective of the comic and really get to the heart of it, which is what really has stayed with me when I look at the comic. Just the resiliency of humanity and our ability to thrive under sometimes the worst circumstances, and what that means to carve out a different idea of a future. And I love how he really got to the center of family and heart, and kind of pushing back on toxic masculinity and patriarchy in a way that uplifts the possibilities of leading from a more feminine perspective, which doesn't mean that everything goes away, and it's not actually that binary, but it becomes that much more complex and nuanced, and I think we need that right now more than ever.
I loved what Roberto was saying about, let's focus less on this grand scale and more on one person that needs to make one good choice in this situation.
Mm-hmm. And I think, growing up in the Lower East Side of Manhattan in an abandoned building, before it got gentrified, and then watching that gentrification and the poor people who were helping poor people when they were not expecting anyone to be there to rescue them, getting pushed and marginalized to the side. I think that was the thing that really drew me to this, because if Manhattan were to be evacuated, those would be the people who would be left behind. And I know the tenacity of their spirit. I know what they're really capable of, because they made community when it was a blown out, bombed shell when I was growing up. And yes, I grew up in the heroin, AIDS, HIV, crack epidemics, housing crisis, so many different things. And I also remember those block parties. I remember how people knew each other's names and stood up for each other. And I think that's just so beautiful and so powerful. And to see that resurrected in this, and to see the people who are often marginalized being front and center in this story, I think that's really representative of our world. And I think it's a perspective and a lens that we need to better focus on. And I'm grateful to Roberto and to Ava for making this show possible, so that we can reveal to each other just how bright and colorful and inspiring our future could be if we made different choices.